Hi, it's Dr. Parikh, and we're talking now about how to turn your literature review into an introduction. So I have two documents. I have the outline for the literature review themes and the template for the review paper. These should be familiar to you. And I'm going to talk, I'll start by talking about formatting with the template. So where you have the bold heading literature review, you're going to change it to introduction. Your themes will likely stay the same, but you'll add a new paragraph that goes the present study. So you'll have a heading just like for your themes that says the present study. And then you'll paste in that paragraph that you already drafted and got feedback on about the present study. And it'll be indented and normal. So that's the most obvious change you'll make. You'll want to go through and look for ways that you can help point your lit review just a little more closely to what your research question ended up being. And hopefully you got a little bit of a head start with this by choosing your method early on, your measure. And so you kind of knew what you wanted to talk about. But now that it's a research proposal, it needs to feel like your literature review is leading up to something. Research proposals have even more of that funnel, the idea that you start broad and you get smaller and smaller and smaller. And you do a lot of that in your present study article. In the present study, you start by talking about kind of what are the main findings. And then you say, look, there's a gap. And then you say, look, my study fits in that gap. And then you say, look, here's what my study can add to the literature. This is why my study would have value. And then you say what your research question or hypothesis is. And so you've done a lot of that, but go through and make sure that you for example, if you're looking at differences between men and women, you need to have something in your literature or in your introduction that discusses men and women. Or you need to, before your limitations section, you talked about, hey, there's no men and women. You need to make sure that if that's what you're studying, if there's nothing looking at the differences between men and women, and that's what your research question is about, you need to make sure that you have mentioned who the participants are along the way a little bit, and that especially in your present study paragraph, you really emphasize that the gap is that there's nothing looking at men and women. It's assumed that men and women have similar experiences, but we don't like to assume in psychology. We like to test and see. That's what makes us a science. So as I look here, actually I pulled this document up, but I'm not sure. I think a lot of the work you're going to do, it may be even just looking at your outline might help you because it's like a simplified version of your paper. And so it can help you scan through and see whether you're talking about your topics. You don't need to describe the measure in advance or anything, but make sure you're talking about that variable and giving some information about it. In this case, you have a fairly short introduction. That's what it's supposed to be. You don't have to do a complete overhaul the same way you do with the discussion, thank goodness. But I do want to see that you've made some effort to tailor it, to make it flow, to make the whole paper make sense instead of being like, okay, we're just kind of meandering through an introduction and then boom, we have a focused research proposal. No, we want to feel like it's leading up to something and that that present study paragraph wants to feel like a natural transition between the introduction you've just done, this review of the existing literature, and the research study you're going to suggest in the next section. Good luck. Thanks. Bye.